Now, the nominations for this year's Oscars have been announced in Hollywood.
Now, this year's Best Picture crop includes 9 films, with Martin Scorsese's Hugo and the black and white picture The Artist the biggest contenders. Now, to help take us through what precisely it all means and who's looking good, we have the Chief Film Critic for News Limited, Leigh Paatch, joining us here. How are you going?
I'm very well, thank you.
What do you make of the announcements overnight? As a whole?
It's a very unusual kind of distribution of nominations this year. Like, traditionally, whoever gets the most nominations is the favourite for Best Picture. But with Martin Scorsese's Hugo, it's missed out on a lot of the acting nominations. So, by default, The Artist, the French silent film, looks like probably being the leading contender.
Tell us what you make about that film. We've had some suggest that it's a great movie, and I know it's a silent film, so there's this wall between me and going to see a silent film.
Well, the thing with Hugo and The Artist is that they're both homages to kind of silent cinema, old cinema. And the Oscars, the voting members for the Oscars are traditionally kind of, I think the membership skews to about 55, 60 years old and above. So the French film The Artist, as radical as it sounds, black and white, silent, a musical of sorts, even though it's silent, it still kind of appeals to that older membership.
Yeah, and Martin Scorsese is sometimes in the Oscars they go for a real favourite, someone that maybe hasn't been in the spotlight for a while, and Scorsese would be a hero of many.
Well, he was ignored for a large proportion of his career. A lot of his best work, like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, missed out in kind of very controversial circumstances. Okay. But now that he's an elder statesman, there is a lot of love in the room for him all of a sudden.
Yep. Sounds a bit like some of the literary awards as well.
Yeah.
Judges trying to make up for past omissions. As history tells us, they were well awarded. But what about the Best Actor and Best Actress categories? Of course, Meryl Streep would surely be the favourite, having now officially got the nomination for The Iron Lady.
Meryl Streep's an unusual one in that hers is a great performance in a fairly average film. She gets the impersonation of Margaret Thatcher down pat, but this film really riles me. Margaret Thatcher was such a divisive figure, but the film itself sits on the fence. But Streep's channeling of Thatcher's voice and presence, quite remarkable. Still don't know if she's going to win, though. I have a vague feeling that Viola Davis from the film The Help could knock her off just in the home stretch.
And what about the men with the best acting? I watched the Descendants on the weekend, and I really liked George Clooney's performance, but I'm a big Clooney fan.
Look, Clooney is probably second in contention. Jean Jardin, who's the lead actor of The Artist, he's probably the front runner, given that he's done so well in a lot of the other awards, especially the Golden Globes win, kind of really boosts his chances. Yeah.
Are there any major omissions? Is there anyone today who's cursing those who have a vote for not managing to get a nomination?
I think Leonardo DiCaprio missing out for J. Edgar, the story of J. Edgar Hoover, something of a surprise. Steven Spielberg, although his film Warhorse scored 6 nominations, didn't get a Best Director nomination, and that's a tremendous insult. If your film's nominated for Best Picture and you don't get a Best Director gong, I reckon he'd be kicking the cat this morning.
Why do you think that? Why do you think he didn't get a nomination? What's behind that?
I think the film kind of sat uncomfortably with some people, and that it was very kind of treacly and overblown. And I think Steven Spielberg can kind of overdo the emotional manipulation sometimes.
Just finally, who would you give the best film to?
Personally, I'd give it to Tree of Life, which just scampered in. It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes last year. For pure artistic reasons, definitely give it to that. But I'd love to see Hugo knock off The Artist. I just think that it's quite a magical film, and yeah.
All right, we'll find out before too long. Leigh Paatch, thanks very much.
My pleasure.